Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. All right, Wargaming is trying to fix French destroyers. When I say fix, I'm using giant air quotes here. All right, I'm looking at the Eagle, I'm looking at D'Artige du Fournay, and I think after these fixes that Wargaming made, which are really just nerfs, that he might be the best commander for French destroyers. With Du Fournay, you've got up to a 6% HE shell damage boost based on his base trait. You can affect turret traverse in the second row. I think he might be the best French destroyer commander at this part of the game, because look at that, incendiary goes up to 6%. That's a really strong thing. You can go after the turret traverse there in row 2. You can get Velocious in row 3. Smoke on the water in row 4. Then if you don't like that, you can change that down in the 4th row to a different skill. But I can't understate the value of incendiary enough and how Wargaming has nerfed these commanders to their detriment. And we'll show you the other commanders and show you the nerfs in just a minute. It is really puzzling to me. Wargaming is doing this kind of one step up, two steps back when it comes to French destroyers and commanders. They're trying to make them fit their intended role as a gunboat. We'll talk more about that later. But they're doing it wrong. Okay, they're doing it wrong. Now, let's go look at Filippo Bueno. He is the concealability commander. Look at his base trait, Powder Keg. This used to be 5%. This is a fully maxed out commander. Now it's 3.5%. A 1.5% reduction. And this is the skill that they nerfed. Go all out. Used to be a 20% boost to concealment when the engine boost is active. They've implemented this skill wrong. They've implemented it wrong. Now they did reduce the penalty from 50% to 35% cooldown time. And that's great and everything, but at this point, why wouldn't you just run Look at Me Now? You know, I've got Give Me Speed, I've got an extra 2 engine boosts, so it may be that with Go All Out, either before the nerf or after it, you wouldn't have been able to have enough time in a match to use all 4 engine boosts anyway. But I'm going to prove to you that they've implemented the skill wrong, using what my close friend and mentor Humphrey Bogart, the captain of a ship called the USS Kane, refers to as geometric logic. All right, so we've got Chichang here. You know, at this point, we might as well go back and talk about why maybe in a different world you would want to put a different commander like Philip Vine on there if the boost to Go All Out was incoming fire dispersion. Let's say 16%. I'm just making up numbers. So 4% for Vine, 16% for Go All Out. You get a 20% boost to incoming fire dispersion. And another thing, this is a concealment commander, but he has an offensive skill, and I don't think you're going to use that anymore. You're not going to use Fragile Threat, but Powder Keg shouldn't be a skill for this commander. It should be a skill for the other commander, Louis Violette. Okay, in the words of Prince Blip, and I'm quoting, this is who Wargaming says is the gunboat commander for France. He's not a gunboat commander. He's the survivability commander. But this skill, I Disappear, is more of a skill suited for a concealment commander. Quick Fix, row 1, that's a survivability skill. Okay, you're not going to use anything but these survivability skills from now on. You're going to use Sidestep. That's their excuse for calling him a gunboat commander. You know, you look at row 3, you got Perceptive. You look at row 2, everything in row 2 is a survivability skill. Don't let Wargaming fool you into thinking Louis Violette is a gunboat commander. He doesn't have an offensive base trait, and all the skills that we're selecting are essentially survivability skills. He is a survivability commander. This is the survivability commander archetype for destroyers in this game. That's why D'Artige du Fournay can be a better choice. Incendiary, way better than a Bueno. You got Burn It Down XXL, and you got Crisscross. 3 offensive skills. Now, you could put on Look at Me Now if you wanted to, but if you're going to buy into Wargaming's theory that French destroyers shouldn't try for concealment, you could boost your torpedo reload time. I really like Velocious, and it doesn't have the penalty that Destroyer Be Destroyed does in terms of shell grouping for your main battery. Now, granted, down here in row 4, there's only one destroyer that has a smoke screen, the Eagle, so steer clear, although it's not going to do a whole lot. Might be a better choice. Reaching Out XXL might be a better choice. You're going to use Unstoppable, but at the end of the day, I think Du Fournet just became a viable option for your number 1 French destroyer commander, all based on this skill right here, Incendiary, and based on his row 1 and row 2 skills in this game after the nerf to French destroyer commanders. Now let's talk, if I'm remembering what I'm ranting about here in this video correctly, let's go to the commander thing and talk about some other skills that need to be in French and Russian destroyer commander skill trees. Okay? So here we've got a Bueno, he's your concealment commander. We've got Violette, he's your survivability commander. Let's go into the Japanese tech tree and look at Reizo Tanaka. And the skill I want to talk about now is On Alert. I can guarantee you no one playing a Japanese destroyer, unless they're testing it out or doing something crazy, is using On Alert. They're either using Torpedo Safari with this commander, they're using Perceptive, or they're using Twist and Track if they got the other commander on there. They're not using On Alert. But On Alert gives you a long-range incoming fire indicator. On Alert gives you a boost to your rudder shift. Maybe that's a good choice, because this, Kurita, this is a gunboat commander. He has Twist and Track. He has Observant Rage. This is the archetype for a gunboat commander. France doesn't have that. Just like Russia doesn't have a concealment commander. Okay? And why? Because Wargaming just decided they aren't going to have one. Okay, do you think Twist and Track would work with a French destroyer? Increases the destroyer gun turret traverse? Yeah, I think it'd work great. Do you think Observant Rage would work for a French destroyer? I do too. Okay, but they've decided that this is a gunboat commander, even though when you look at these skills, survivability skill, whatever you choose in row 3, survivability skill, and another survivability skill. And don't forget the legendary skill, also a survivability skill. This is not a gunboat commander, Wargaming. This is a survivability commander. Oh, and by the way, I don't think England has a gunboat commander either. Okay? And so let's go back in time as we're talking about I Disappear and how this should be on a Bueno. And a Bueno skill, if you're trying to pretend Violette is a gunboat commander, Powder Keg, that should be Violette's base trait instead of a Bueno's. But I digress. Let's go back in history to when the game was first introduced. You see the early adopter flag on my videos. I played this game since it first came out. I played French destroyers in the olden days. Before the advent of aircraft carriers. I can tell you it is my opinion, without reservation, that the introduction of aircraft carriers is a huge bane to French destroyers. So you gave more main battery reload boosters. That's a good thing, right? But in return, you've introduced aircraft carriers into the game that can keep French destroyers spotted for a very long period of time with no kind of smokescreen, except for the one destroyer, the Eagle. And then in return, you gave them nothing. You gave them nothing except a nerf to their one good skill, the cloaking device skill in row 2. Okay, and if you don't know, on PC, French destroyers get up to 4 of these main battery reload boosters. The most you can get, if you use fully packed, is 3. Or there's one meme Azer Lane commander, you can get 4. Okay, but it's a cruiser commander, So again, that's not really a build that everybody's going to be rolling out with. So you need more main battery reload boosters, okay? But you don't have that. Instead, you've got Go All Out, which is implemented wrong. Now, this is clipped from Wargaming's own wiki page in their own words about French destroyers. To compensate for a lack of smokescreen, they have enhanced damage saturation characteristics that allow them to take a surprising amount of punishment and receive very little damage in the process. The French engine boost consumable allows these ships to reach high velocities, maybe speeds might be a better word, making it harder for enemy ships to aim effectively at them. We don't get this enhanced damage saturation characteristic on console. We've never had it. And if it's harder for enemies to aim effectively at them, Go All Out should buff incoming fire dispersion and not concealment. I know nobody from Wargaming is ever going to be confronted with their own words. I know nobody from Wargaming looked at this and said, hey, wait a minute. Is there a way that we can implement that instead of the shitty thing we came up with? And I know that nobody from Wargaming is ever going to watch this video because they don't take criticism very well. We know that. They're going to do what they do until they're called out enough by the player base. And then maybe they'll change something. So instead of detectability while the engine boost is active, it should be incoming fire dispersion while engine boost is active. You put that up to 16%, and then maybe instead of Jersey Swirsky, I'll put Philip Vine in there and get a 20% boost to that. And maybe these ships can start playing that mid-range gunboat role that they have on PC. But let's go a little bit further here while we're talking about how these ships are implemented by Wargaming. You've got stand or fall there. You got smoke on the water here. Smoke on the water is worthless for these destroyers. How about you put on alert there? Or better yet, how about you take a skill that's an amalgam of stand or fall and that enhanced damage saturation characteristic. Maybe the more damage the destroyer takes, the more resistant it is to incoming damage. I just came up with that idea. Or how about just a flat skill that reduces incoming damage? Provide the mechanic that we're not getting here on console and provide it in the fourth row and take away the stupid smoke on the water skill, which you use only for one destroyer. And really, let's be honest, probably nobody used that anyway. Okay? You've got all these destroyer commanders, and they've got skills that people aren't going to use because you don't have smoke screens on these destroyers. So you look at Go All Out, it's been nerfed, that's great and everything, but they nerfed it wrong. And my prediction is, as a result of these nerfs, one little buff and a bunch of nerfs to Powder Keg like we talked about and Go All Out, the result is that less players are going to play these destroyers. The only players that are going to play them are very good players. That's going to skew your spreadsheet even more, and so you're going to come back and nerf these destroyers again. And as a result, eventually no one will play them until you realize you are going about this shit in the wrong way. Okay? Hey, look. Here's the U.S. destroyers commanders. You got Gleaves, you got Halsey. He's a gunboat commander. Hey, look at that. He's got Observant Rage. He's got Twist and Track. You know, we'll go back out there in a minute and we'll look at the other commander. Because, see, Halsey was a commander in this game from the very beginning. So you got a line of gunboat destroyers and they have a gunboat commander. Shocking. Here's Arleigh Burke. Survivability skill, survivability skill, survivability skill, survivability skill, survivability skill. He's a survivability commander. And look, I know what you're going to say. We can't give Violette Powder Keg because it's a confrontational base trait. Arleigh Burke has a confrontational base trait. Gleaves didn't exist until U.S. destroyer players bitched long and hard, and Wargaming finally gave it to them. Alright, don't get me wrong, this is pre-nerf footage in the Sirocco, another destroyer that's not any good because of the way Wargaming implemented them. These are supposed to be mid-range gunboat, folks, not torpedo boats, but because the way Wargaming put them into this game, most everybody uses them as a torpedo boat. We've got the pre-nerf skill going. Go all out. As you can see, our concealment, 4.2, allowing us to unleash a torpedo strike at the unsuspecting Farragut. Now we'll hit the main battery reload booster. These good French guns, not doing the damage I was hoping for. Okay, but at the end of the day, if these are supposed to be gunboats, you have to give them characteristics that are going to allow them to succeed as gunboats. Can we dodge all these torpedoes? The answer is no. We can't. We can't. Because we don't have the rudder shift. And maybe if we had on alert, we could have dodged that torpedo. Because this is the problem with these French ships. You get into one gunfight, win or lose. Well, I mean, even if you win, and then you don't have a lot of hit points left. So at that point, you're reduced to capping bases and shooting torpedoes without go all out in its old format. You don't have the ability to do that. So maybe if they switch go all out to what I'm suggesting and used it to boost incoming fire dispersion, you'd feel a little bit more comfortable, especially if you had on alert further down in that skill tree, or the damage reduction that we've talked about that these ships have on PC. And you don't have long-range torpedoes. So essentially, once these ships are damaged, or once they're spotted, they essentially become worthless in these battles, except for capping bases or suicide torp runs, if you can get it off here. We're not going to be able to get close enough to the sky to suicide torp run them. Or are we? Yeah, we are, folks. We're doing it. Our thing is running out. We're going to turn here. We're going to get these torpedoes off. We got this armor piercing loaded, and the Königsberg is not going to react in time. You know, we could have killed them with our guns. We kill them with our torpedoes. But at the end of the day, these destroyers will never succeed until Wargaming starts listening to the people who play the game, who have a different perspective on these ships because they actually play them all the time and they want them to succeed. I don't think anything I've suggested here is overpowered or game breaking. I honestly don't. If the goal is to replicate this game as it is on PC, you need to introduce that mechanic, that reduced damage mechanic for these destroyers, because otherwise, as I'm predicting, now that you've nerfed go all out, less people are going to play them. The only people that play them are going to be very good players. They're going to play only certain ships that they know they can excel at, and as a result, your spreadsheet is going to get more and more skewed, and you'll come back and nerf these ships without reason again. Do I believe the nerf for go all out was necessary? I don't, but my complaint is not that go all out is overpowered. My complaint is that go all out is configured wrong. Okay, and secondarily, until you fix this damage mechanic for these ships, they're just never going to be able to do what they do on PC. Until you give them 3 or 4 main battery reload boosters, they're never going to be able to have the impact that they have on PC. And as a result, new players aren't going to play them. They aren't. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's good that newer players are waiting to get into French and Russian ships. But on the other hand, maybe there's players who try them, hate them, never play them again, or try them coming over from PC, get frustrated how badly they are here, and badly implemented, and just leave the game and never play the game again. And I think that's really a concern that you have to worry about. So I'm going to cut this footage here. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button. Don't forget to share it with other people you think might enjoy it. Thanks a lot, everybody. I'll see you on the next video.
Attention. Defending
Problem
the
solved,
base is
sir.
our primary objective. Battleship detected.
Enemy destroyer sunk.